Beneath the barren hills of southeastern Turkey lies a riddle that rewrites history itself. At first glance, the landscape seems unremarkable. Dry earth, scattered stones, winds sweeping across an empty plain. For centuries, shepherds walked these hills, unaware that beneath their feet slumbered something extraordinary. In 1994, a team of archaeologists uncovered what looked like fragments of carved stone. But these were no ordinary ruins. Rising from the soil were massive T-shaped pillars, arranged in circles like a prehistoric cathedral. And when the dating results came back, the world was stunned. 12,000 years. That makes this site, Göbekli Tepe, 7,000 years older than Stonehenge and twice as old as the pyramids of Giza. A temple built not by advanced civilizations with cities and farming, but by hunter-gatherers who, according to everything we thought we knew, should never have been able to build something so vast, so precise, and so sophisticated. How could a people without writing, without wheels, without permanent settlements, create this? It's a question that still echoes across archaeology, mythology, and human imagination. Because Göbekli Tepe isn't just old, it shouldn't even exist. Something that defies the timeline of human progress. Something that whispers of forgotten knowledge, of mysteries buried in time. And tonight, we unearth it. In 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt stood beneath the Turkish sun, staring at what the world had overlooked for centuries. Shepherds had walked these hills, plowing fields, stacking stones, never realizing what lay beneath. But Schmidt saw something different. Protruding from the earth were fragments of limestone pillars, not natural formations, but carved by human hands. Curiosity became excavation. As layers of soil were removed, a vision emerged. Massive T-shaped monoliths, some weighing up to 20 tons, arranged in perfect circles. Each pillar bore carvings, foxes, snakes, vultures, lions, etched with artistry that rivaled any later civilization. And then came the revelation that shook the foundations of history. The site was 12,000 years old. To put this in perspective, at this time, humans had not yet discovered the wheel. Farming was still thousands of years away. Civilization, as we define it, with cities, governments, writing, did not exist. And yet here stood a monumental temple complex, crafted with precision and intent. History, according to textbooks, tells us that agriculture came first. Settled life produced surplus food, surplus gave rise to cities, and from cities came religion, temples, and monuments. But Göbekli Tepe defied that logic. Here was a temple before cities, a sanctuary before farming, worship before civilization. Schmidt himself called it the world's first cathedral. But his awe was mixed with unease. If these hunter-gatherers built temples, then perhaps our entire sequence of human progress was wrong. Who were these people? Nomads with stone tools, yet capable of hauling megaliths and inscribing animals in lifelike detail. How did they organize themselves? What drove them to gather here, on this barren hill, to carve symbols into stone and raise monuments to gods we no longer remember? Every answer led only to more questions. And in those questions lies a deeper mystery. Did faith create civilization, not the other way around? Because at Göbekli Tepe, humanity's story seems to run backward. Step closer to the pillars of Göbekli Tepe, and you realize they are not blank stones. They are storytellers. Each surface is alive with carvings, etched into limestone 12,000 years ago, yet still whispering across the silence of ages. Snakes slither down the sides of the monoliths, their bodies twisting as if in motion. Vultures spread their wings, talons clutching severed heads. Foxes leap in eternal hunt. Lions prowl with jaws open wide. It is not random decoration. It is a language, a symbolic script, etched long before alphabets, long before ink touched papyrus. But what do these carvings say? To some archaeologists, the images may represent a cosmic bestiary, a mythological world where animals were more than prey or predator. They were spirits, guardians, warnings, or even gods. A vulture could symbolize death, the passage of souls. Snakes, rebirth, danger, or knowledge. Lions, raw power, rulers of both earth and imagination. Others see something more unsettling, a ritual theater where hunter-gatherers confronted life's deepest fears. Imagine the people of that era, fragile in a harsh world, facing death, hunger, and the unknown. In these carvings, perhaps they transformed chaos into order, fear into ritual, survival into meaning. And then there is the darker possibility. Some researchers argue the carvings may be warnings. A vulture carrying a head is not comfort. It is omen. A snake curling along a pillar is not peace. It is threat. Could Göbekli Tepe have been less a place of worship and more a place of fear? The eerie part is not just the images themselves, but their persistence. These stones have stood through ice ages, storms, empires rising and falling, yet their messages remain sharp, precise, almost defiant against time. It is as if the builders wanted us, not their children, not their grandchildren, but us, to see them. When you stand before them, the carvings feel alive. They are not relics of a forgotten people. They are voices, speaking across 12 millennia. And though we may never fully understand their words, the feeling is unmistakable. Our ancestors were reaching out, trying to tell us something. Something they thought was too important to let the wind erase. Stand in the heart of Göbekli Tepe and look up. Above the barren hills, the night sky stretches like an ancient dome. Endless, unbroken, eternal. 12,000 years ago, that same sky would have been even brighter, unpolluted by cities, filled with constellations so vivid they seemed close enough to touch. Some archaeologists believe the builders of Göbekli Tepe were not only carving their myths into stone, they were carving the heavens. The pillars, arranged in great circles, have been studied not just as architecture, but as instruments of observation. The layout suggests possible alignments with stars and celestial events. The constellation Orion, the hunter, forever chasing across the sky, may have been etched into their rituals. Sirius, the brightest star, whose rising once marked the Egyptian Nile flood, could have been revered here thousands of years earlier. Some researchers even argue that the great vulture carving corresponds to a constellation, a cosmic marker of death and rebirth. Could it be that Göbekli Tepe was humanity's first observatory? A place where our ancestors looked upward, connecting earth with sky, myth with mathematics. The theory is seductive. It suggests these people were not just hunters or gatherers, but astronomers, reading the stars, marking solstices, mapping time itself. It would mean that before the wheel, before writing, before cities, humans had already begun to measure eternity. And yet, caution remains. Many scholars remind us that alignments can be found anywhere if one looks hard enough. Was it truly a star map? Or are we imposing patterns on mystery? Were these circles tools of science, or sacred spaces where gods were called down to walk among men? The truth may live in the tension between both worlds, the scientific and the sacred. To the builders of Göbekli Tepe, perhaps there was no difference. The sky was alive, the stars were stories, and the universe was not separate from daily life but woven into it. What we do know is this: when the sun rose and set over those stones, when the stars wheeled above them, the people of Göbekli Tepe stood in awe. They felt the same pull we still feel when we look at the night sky, that quiet, humbling recognition that we are small, and yet somehow connected to something vast, eternal, and divine. The sky above, the gods below, and Göbekli Tepe standing in between. Most ancient ruins crumble because of time, swallowed by weather, toppled by earthquakes, or erased by invaders. But Göbekli Tepe is different. It did not simply fall to ruin. It was deliberately buried. Archaeologists discovered that the great stone circles were covered beneath thousands of tons of soil and rubble, packed in layer after layer. This wasn't a slow, natural process. It was an act of intention. Someone, thousands of years ago, chose to take a monument of staggering size and effort and hide it from the world. Why? Some scholars suggest it may have been a form of ritual closure. Just as a sacred fire is extinguished with ceremony, perhaps each enclosure at Göbekli Tepe was retired, buried in reverence, sealed like a tomb, a final gesture of respect to the gods who once dwelled there. Others argue it might have been protection. To preserve the sanctity of the site, the builders may have entombed it, ensuring that future generations would not defile what was too holy to remain exposed. And then there is the darker possibility: cultural erasure. Was Göbekli Tepe buried because it no longer fit the world that was emerging? As farming and settled life spread, perhaps the old ways, the rituals of hunter-gatherer shamans and star watchers, became obsolete. To move forward, humanity may have chosen to bury its past. The emotional weight is haunting. Unlike ruins destroyed by accident or neglect, this was a conscious act. A civilization turning the page, closing a chapter, locking away its secrets beneath the earth. And yet, in burying Göbekli Tepe, they also preserved it. Those tons of soil protected the carvings, the pillars, the artistry, allowing us 12,000 years later to see them as they once stood. It's as if the people who covered it wanted both to forget and to be remembered. A paradox sealed in stone: concealment as preservation, destruction as protection. When Klaus Schmidt brushed away the first layers of dust in 1994, he was not uncovering ruins that had crumbled. He was opening a time capsule, deliberately hidden by hands long gone. Why they did it, we may never know. But the silence of those buried stones carries an unmistakable message. Some truths were too powerful to be left in the open. When the stones of Göbekli Tepe rose from the dust, they did more than rewrite a chapter of history. They whispered to us of worlds we thought were only myths. For centuries, stories of lost civilizations have haunted human imagination. Tales of Atlantis, a shining city swallowed by the sea, of pre-flood kingdoms, wiped away by cataclysm, of golden ages erased, leaving only fragments in legend. To mainstream historians, these stories were dismissed as fables, metaphors, or exaggerations from ancient storytellers. But then came Göbekli Tepe, a temple complex 12,000 years old, predating agriculture, cities, even writing itself. Something that, according to our textbooks, simply should not exist. It reignited fascination. Authors like Graham Hancock argue that sites like Göbekli Tepe may be the faint echoes of an advanced civilization lost in the deep past, survivors of some forgotten cataclysm who passed down knowledge to hunter-gatherers. It's a tantalizing narrative, that beneath the surface of history, entire worlds have come and gone, leaving us with only ruins and mysteries. But the skeptics push back. Mainstream archaeology insists there is no hard evidence of a vanished global civilization. Instead, Göbekli Tepe is seen as a triumph of human ingenuity, proof that even without farming or cities, small groups of hunter-gatherers could gather, organize, and build something extraordinary. No need for Atlanteans, no need for lost masters, yet the allure remains, because human memory is fragile. Whole cultures have been erased not by conspiracy, but by time. The Library of Alexandria once held countless works of ancient knowledge, burned, scattered, lost forever. Great cities like Çatalhöyük or the Indus Valley civilization flourished for centuries, only to fade into dust and be rediscovered millennia later. Göbekli Tepe reminds us that forgetting is as natural as remembering. Civilizations rise, they leave their marks, and then they vanish. Sometimes deliberately buried, sometimes swallowed by disaster, sometimes simply overlooked until the earth gives them back. So perhaps the myths of Atlantis and the flood aren't just fantasy. Perhaps they are distorted memories of real worlds, carried forward in stories, reshaped by time. And that is the haunting truth of Göbekli Tepe. Not whether it was Atlantis or the work of a lost age, but that civilizations can vanish so completely, we forget they ever existed, until the stones speak again. The sun rises slowly over the hills of southeastern Turkey. Golden light spills across the T-shaped stones of Göbekli Tepe, just as it must have done 12,000 years ago. Shadows stretch long and thin, and for a moment, the ancient pillars seem alive again, guardians of a forgotten world. We stand before what may be humanity's first temple, older than pyramids, older than cities, older than writing itself. A place built by hands we can no longer name, guided by beliefs we can no longer hear. Yet their presence lingers in every carving, every stone, every silent echo. Why did they build it? Was it a sanctuary for gods, a cosmic observatory, a gathering place for stories, or something we still cannot imagine? Each theory offers a piece of the puzzle, yet the full picture remains hidden. And perhaps that is the point. Some questions are not meant to be answered, but to remind us of the vastness of what we do not know. Göbekli Tepe is more than an archaeological site. It is a mirror held up to us, showing that humans have always searched for meaning, for connection, for something beyond survival. Even when food was scarce and the world was harsh, our ancestors carved lions, vultures, and stars into stone. They looked upward, they looked inward, and they left behind a monument that whispers across time. We were here, and we wondered too. And so we arrive at the last question. If they could build this 12,000 years ago, what else have we forgotten? What chapters of our story are still buried, waiting for us to uncover? The mystery of Göbekli Tepe is not just about the past. It is about us, today, and the future we are still writing.